Hi everyone! Welcome to the video show notes for the episode on kids and friendships, a really important topic, and we want to just give you a nice snapshot of what we talked about in this episode because it's an important one. So a couple little highlights. One that I shared is I really taught my kids from a young age to watch and observe how people were interacting. And I showed them other examples too, sometimes when we were out and about, but I would have them watch not only how children interacted with each other, but how did they respond to adults? How did they treat their parents? So even in their very early years at the Montessori school, we would watch like pick up and drop off, and are these kids kind and respectful to the adults in their world? What are they like when maybe something doesn't go their way on the playground? So that they could just get a sense of, what do I like about what I'm seeing, even from these tender ages? What do I not like? And it could start to at least plant the seeds for how would I choose who to spend my time with.
And I talked about the fact that my kids and I talk a lot about how a friend should make you feel, and should they make you feel that way all the time, most of the time, some of the time, and really looking at their friendships. How does that person make you feel? Do they make you feel really good about yourself? Do they build you up? Are they excited for you when you're successful? Or is this someone who, sometimes actually makes you feel kind of yucky, or sometimes when you're successful tries to one-up you? And just kind of examining, what do I want in a friend? What should I be looking for in terms of how I feel when I'm in that relationship? And then I would often compare it to my really positive adult relationships. So, when you see Auntie Deana and I interact, does Auntie Deana ever make me cry? Do we laugh together? Does she say supportive things? This is how friendship is supposed to look, to help them, kind of like what Deana was saying, begin to recognize that in their own world.
Absolutely. That is so helpful. And I think it also helps when the going gets tough. And I know you mentioned this in the episode, but when we have kids who are maybe having a struggle in a friendship, or there's maybe someone not making them feel great, we can also remind them kind of, this too shall pass. You're in this season of hard. And I love, Kira said this in the episode, but it was so great. Just that acknowledgement, like, you're in a hard time of friendships. Like, laying young friendships down it's challenging. And to just acknowledge that, but then they get, and this is what I love about using these adult examples, then they can see, but look, it turns into this if you hang in there and if you make those careful choices. And so just putting up before them great modeling is really helpful. And we're big on modeling anyway, but it can be, I think, extra helpful if there is a challenging season. And even with older kids, I mean, they get into like some drama and I don't like you anymore. And it can feel really yucky to them, and it can feel very large and like it will last longer than it is. And so just reminding them that this is, it feels like that. And it feels like, it's going on for an eternity. And so giving them some perspective that it really is a season. And then you get to this nice place with your adult friendships, which can be really beautiful.
Yeah, I say that to my kids all the time. Like, kid friendships are hard. This is not surprising. I went through it. Your dad went through it. Yeah. Auntie went through it. Like, everybody's gone through it, and then we get to this place, and so that is coming for you. But right now, it is actually very hard. We also talk a lot about how to cultivate great friends. You also have to be a good friend. And so if we're expecting someone to make us feel good, if we're expecting someone to celebrate our successes, if we're expecting someone to be there for us, we really have to be doing that too. And so really making sure that not only are we expecting it from out here, but we're fostering it then in our little people as well, that they too need to be great friends.
And what's so nice is that the family provides kind of the first great framework to do that. So we go into this more in the episode, but we did talk about how it's such a beautiful opportunity, even just with siblings. They're kind of your first friend and a great practice ground and training ground, because also in a family we have the safety of these people love us even when we fall down, when we make mistakes, but we can start asking those questions. How do you think that made your brother feel when you took that toy? And how would that have worked in a friend situation? If you were at a play date, would that have been the kind thing to do? And talking through, what could we have done differently and what choices can we make? And I think even guiding them along with some problem solving, because they're going to need to learn the vocabulary around, how do I solve a problem? And families are a great way to start that, even with only children, because they can also start that. How do I be kind? How do I be respectful to the adults in my world? Because they're still going to be interacting with parents, and they're still going to be dealing with other children, whether it's at school or at sports or some other activity, that is going to come up at some point. So it's great to be ready for it, but it was nice we got to touch on how important it is to get that practice in your own family.
Yeah, and that, as parents, what we let our kids get away with at home is going to show up on the playground.
Yes, it will.
So really thinking about, am I fostering a positive relationship between my children, and how is that going to play out for them wanting to foster positive relationships outside as well?
Absolutely.
And then I haven't quite been here yet because mine are small, but we talked a little bit about, well, what happens if we need to get out of a friendship? What happens if we go, okay, no, this is not healthy for me, which is so important for kids to learn, because to have those great adult friendships, we actually have to recognize when a friendship has gone to a place where maybe that's just not a good fit for us anymore.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about I loved what you said about this, what you've encouraged your kids to do when this happens, because we want them to be kind.
Yes.
Right? This is the problem. And oftentimes kids who've been raised to be kind are then scared to exit a friendship because they don't want to hurt the person's feelings.
And
so,
how do you do that and not be mean? So I do think there's kind of this delicate balance. And so one of the things we've talked about in our home is a really nice, gentle and organic way to start to extricate yourself from maybe a friendship that's become unhealthy is to stop initiating. So if that person maybe reaches out to you, it doesn't mean you don't respond at all, although you don't have to accept maybe an invitation to go to their house. You can say that doesn't work out, or we talked about even letting the parent be the fall guy.
Yeah.
So I've had my kids say, I'm going to ask you something right now, and privately I want to tell you I'd like you to say no. I mean, so we talked more about that in the episode, but you don't have to accept those invitations. But what I encouraged them to do was, if the person just sends a quick text or something, there's nothing wrong with replying, but you're going to not initiate. You're not the one reaching out. You're not the one inviting. You're not the one pursuing, because you're ready to let this friendship either diminish or die off altogether. And that's one way to do it without being unkind. It's not like, I'm done with you, forget it, which isn't the kind of people I'm trying to raise, certainly. And there are times where a friendship needs to end, but I wanted to really instill that it can be done without being a bully or being unkind.
Well, and I think, if children are being raised in a way that they are encouraged to assert themselves while they're still in a friendship, there's probably already been dialogue, right?
Yes.
There's probably already been, hey, that hurt my feelings when you did that, or hey, when that happened, I didn't like that. So I think that then, it's not like it's ghosting, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? That you have hopefully encouraged and processed with them to speak their minds, to share what's going on for them, to ask for change to happen. And then if it's not, at that point, we are quietly and gently trying to remove ourselves.
And then the other thing is, then it's not a surprise to the other party, too, because there's been conversations about what's not going well. So they're not going to be shocked and feeling like the rug got pulled out from under them. Why aren't they inviting me to stuff anymore? They'll, if they have any wisdom and insight, they will know, based on this kind of series of hard conversation we've had, that's probably what's going on. So that's just one thing that we talked about. And then you had this great idea about reinforcing your values around friendship through media.
Yeah, so, and I think this is particularly important when they're young and impressionable and actually learning vocabulary. From the time my kids were tiny, I was very careful that they weren't watching television shows where kids were mean to each other. A lot of shows, not so much today, but certainly when we were growing up, it's like they tried to teach the friendship lesson by almost showing what not to do.
Yes.
So the kid was like super mean and a bully, and all these nasty things would come out of the kid's mouth, and then the lesson was this was not okay. Unfortunately, when kids are small, they don't always pick up on that lesson, and what they're being given is actually
an example of the wrong way.
Vocabulary that they might choose to use. So my kids even know, like, sometimes if we're watching something and two characters start treating each other unkindly, Reese will even look at me, like, out the side of, like,
are you going to watch this?
Is this going to go? Because I like this show, But I think that's really important, to just be careful what you're exposing them to when they're young, because we don't want them to, it's modeling. At the end of the day, what they see is modeling, whether we like it or not. And even if that's not the intention. And then the other thing I would do is, when I did see something come up in media, TV, movie, whatever, where I didn't like what I saw, I would pause and say, hey guys, what do you think about what that person just said? How would you feel if someone said that to you? Do you think that's an okay thing to say? What could that other character say to stand up for themselves. So it became a really good opportunity to process some of this stuff, but I did try to avoid it as best I could.
Yeah, that's really great advice because it's also an opportunity for a discussion, which we're all about ongoing dialogue and multiple conversations about these kinds of things. And just getting the life lesson in there too, sometimes through something you see. So check out our episode on friendships. You can find it at Raising Adults Podcast. And please reach out to us if you have questions or want to add something to this conversation. You can find us at info@futurefocusedparenting.com.